You're listening to Masonry Principles, your guide to building better buildings, with hosts Amanda Bedian and Phil Leden. Welcome to Masonry Principles. Today, Phil and I have the pleasure of talking with Mike Riva. He's the National Sales Manager for Masonry IQ by 3D IQ. How you doing, Mike?
I'm great, Amanda. How are you doing?
Good. Let's start things off with explaining what Masonry IQ is and 3D IQ is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, 3D IQ is the company that's created Masonry IQ. It's a software company, and Masonry IQ is a masonry design solution for architects that is a plugin to Revit. We wanted to create something that supported masonry to highlight, how to properly design with masonry, giving architects the freedom to really focus on all the benefits that masonry can give them, from sustainability of designs with masonry to the creative side of it with the use of different colors and textures and shapes and sizes that masonry can give them. And like I said, it's a plug into Revit and allows them to seamlessly work inside their design platform the way that they're typically used to.
That's awesome. And you work directly with architects, engineers, contractors.
Exactly. So on the 3D IQ side, with Masonry IQ, I work with the architects, training them on how to use Masonry IQ. I work with the block producers for getting their product on Masonry IQ, so architects can design with it, can render with it, creating the most highly realistic renders with actual masonry product that's available out there on the market. Whenever I say block producers, we are working with them to get photography of their product to put it in a digital format. So these architects can browse inside a Revit actual product from producers and render with it with high quality images. We have content from 24 producers across the country, with that growing every single day. So we're continuing to provide a content library that is the largest one-stop shop for masonry materials.
Yeah, no, I think you guys have done a great job in bridging that gap of bringing technology and masonry into the same room, if you will.
Yeah, and that's what we've been trying to do. Our founder and CEO, Tom Cuneo, he's been in the masonry industry for 20 plus years, and he's seen the sides of contractors, of producers. He saw the need for something that really involved the architects to give them resources and tools that really showcased what masonry can do for them in a very effective way. And that's why he created it, so that architects could be a part of those same conversations, understanding how masonry works, letting them see the real value out of it, and having the ability to design masonry projects to their fullest potential.
We're excited to have it here and with a couple firms in New York, I know. And Phil, how's it going out in Michigan with Masonry IQ?
Really good. I mean, we're trying to get it more included on projects, and I think we have seen more architects using it. One of the things I'm also really excited about is Masonry IQ Build, because that's going to target more of that contractor audience and hopefully help bridge the gap. Do you want to comment on Masonry IQ Build, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Masonry IQ is our flagship product, kind of targeting the design community, was our first step. Masonry IQ Build is our second product from 3D IQ, and it will incorporate everything that Masonry IQ does. The ability to design unit level masonry models, have insight into how the masonry works there, being able to render with that. But it takes it one step further, giving the ability to model rebar in there, entering in rebar schedules, putting together a 3D model with it, being able to pull cost off of everything that's making up your masonry wall so that you can estimate more accurately, being able to get real insight into how the design is functioning based off of what you're estimating, and then being able to pull out that model into an IFC format so that it can be used for BIM coordination with the other trades, and being able to see kind of everything that is going to happen once you begin construction.
Yeah, and I mean, from a sustainability standpoint, it seems like a lot of mason contractors now, as they're estimating these projects, I mean, they're automatically just putting in a 10 or 20% number kind of for estimated waste because, they don't have that level of detail. And I'm excited to see how Masonry IQ Build kind of helps in terms of that sustainability and helping minimize waste. Because now, instead of maybe 10 or 20%, hopefully some of the work you're doing will help them get a more accurate block count so we don't have as much on a job site that we're having to send, away as waste.
Yeah, and that's really, one of our biggest goals here is to make masonry more competitive. Like you said, I mean, contractors, they can be off by up to 20% sometimes, and they build in that percentage into their estimates, which kind of inflates the actual cost of masonry, making it less desirable. It's this assumption that, it is a more expensive material to use. If we have accurate models and the contractors have all the information that they need, they can pull off a much more accurate estimate, making it more cost effective, eliminating that waste, increasing that sustainability there. And I think there's just a big gap there that we can start to bridge now because the tools and the software is available, and those resources can be utilized to really take advantage of masonry, so that we can eliminate that waste.
Yeah, and I think, it's smart to target the contractors because I know, like we've talked before. A lot of engineers just aren't using those tools in Revit to model rebar. It's been there for concrete for quite some time. But we're just not seeing the designers, taking their BIM or their models to that next level. And so I think for contractors to be able to do it will be such an advantage for owners to know where all the steel is in their wall and help minimize some of those costs.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, would be great to be able to have, architects use, Masonry IQ, get more of these accurate models there that could be passed along to a contractor. They could use Build to be able to pull off estimates and model, at a much higher level and get the, see how everything's going to work, and then, be able to estimate everything more accurately, and just clean up the whole process.
If you could explain what the difference between BIM for masonry is and Masonry IQ, just for the people that aren't familiar with these different resources available.
Yeah, so BIM for masonry was the industry's really attempt to start putting BIM resources for masonry out there. One of the initiatives behind that was the MUD database, which is the masonry unit database, which is a collection of masonry units being put into a BIM format that could be utilized in platforms like Revit. Masonry IQ, kind of incorporates a lot of this. We like to say we're a BIM solution, but we're also so much more than that too. We obviously are providing architects the ability to model at a unit level and kind of get that insight there, so they can see, from a BIM perspective how that works. But it's also just giving them insight and information on masonry, on how to better design with it, seeing how cuts are working around, on walls and openings, so that they can adjust their designs in a quick fashion instead of having to do all that manual calculation, instead of having that familiarity and understanding with masonry. Because in all my working with architects, I've learned a lot of them don't come out of architectural school with a good understanding of how masonry works. It's a lot of on the job training there. And sometimes architects that are designing with masonry don't know all the proper ways to do it. So if we have tools and resources that we can put in their hands that allow them to see that, that increases accuracy with their models, which, help in turn accurate orders with the contractors, and just eliminating some of that back and forth. So, we are a BIM solution, and we do kind of tie in with BIM, as we've integrated the MUD database into Masonry IQ, but we also offer so much more than just the BIM title, because it tends to get a negative connotation whenever you say BIM around architects sometimes, and sometimes it allows them to discount it. So we're not just a BIM solution, but we're so much more to be able to provide them better stuff with masonry, so that they can create really the best masonry designs available.
Do you offer like a hands-on training to the architect firms or the specific people dealing with it? How do you go about doing that?
So we've built it to where it's pretty seamlessly connected to Revit. So if you're familiar with the way Revit works, you're going to have easy connection there. But we do have tutorial videos, so kind of the different workflows on how you can create masonry patterns. Rendering in it, adding materials to Revit. Going through all that. We also do hands-on training. So if a firm wants to get their team up to speed on how to properly use it, We can set up Zoom trainings, especially now where no one's meeting in person anymore for the time being
Right.
with COVID. But we are making sure that we can really support any architect, designer looking to use it and making sure they can be successful with it.
I would like people to know also like the different associations teaming up with Mike. It works in our advantage and just everybody working together and creating that cohesive voice, if you will, of all the different resources available. And I encourage anybody that's listening that's within a association, maybe thinking outside the box and bringing in your programs into the architectural firms.
Yeah, and I think beyond a cost perspective, when we're talking about these masonry cuts, one of the most eye-opening things for me has been how it promotes kind of a healthier job site, right? I mean, typically in the last couple of years, we've been focusing a lot more on airborne silica and kind of the negative health effects of that. And OSHA's been implementing a whole lot more about airborne silica. And I mean, yes, it saves time on a project, but if you think about it from a health perspective, also, I think a lot of what you're doing and promoting, modularity actually has a huge impact on health, in terms of contractors and anyone on a job site.
Absolutely. And we've done it numerous times where we've worked with an architect, gotten a model from them, ran Masonry IQ on it, and we've found, areas where they can eliminate cuts that are going to happen or did happen on a job that's already completed, where they could have saved themselves hundreds of cuts, not just helping the aesthetic look, but helping the job safety of the workers on the job site. And just increasing overall worker safety there and just a cost side of it too, of being able to eliminate the labor that goes into making those cuts. And there's a ton of value whenever you have accurate information that you're designing with, so you can see all that. And like you said, Phil, I mean, just being able to have that information is unfounded and hasn't been seen before yet. And I think it provides a ton of value currently, both to the architects and the contractors.
Yeah, we did one project with you and Tom, and we actually met with the designer, and it was built. And what we had shown through running Masonry IQ is if they just moved their openings 4 inches, everything would have been in a modular dimension. However, they didn't do that, and it was kind of cool that Tom brought up the Google Earth image of this building, and every single opening you could see that they had indeed had to cut all of these units, and you could see just from an aesthetic perspective, like you said, it didn't look the best. And also from a health perspective, I mean, think of all the cuts they had to make on that project. But you think about just 4 inches, on a drawing. I mean, it doesn't mean the end of the world for anyone. When you saw it through Masonry IQ and through kind of Google Earth images, it was like, wow, that 4 inch number had this huge impact that no one really foresaw. And so I thought that was really cool that you guys did that.
Yeah, and that's part of the thing of trying to get the architects to understand what they have. I know there's some resistance because in what Masonry IQ allows them to do, there's a lot more detail and information that they can provide that wasn't there before. So I think there's some nervousness around liability and stuff like that. But whenever you're working with models and they can be accurate, you kind of eliminate some of those guesses or calculations that could lead to just error from a manual perspective to having the software accurately automate all that for you, the details, and guaranteeing that continuity amongst everything really can ensure that your design is top notch, but also ensuring that you have the best information at hand while you're designing.
Definitely. And I think, I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but one of the bigger misnomers that I try to promote is, I mean, it's a lot of architects when they hear BIM, they just simply stop listening because they're just not there from a design level yet. And I mean, we talked about it in terms of, a steel shear tab, where if you show two bolts there, but you make it a delegated design from a liability perspective, it kind of muddies the water. And I think the important thing with Masonry IQ is it's not dumping a whole lot of BIM content in your model. What it's doing is it's making those 2D sections that you're having to draw anyways. I mean, I think when I practiced, everyone would just copy and paste this 2D block element, over and over and over and over. And it's taking some of that and just making it simpler, but it's not really dumping in a bunch of BIM 3D content. So I think that's one of the important things I like to highlight as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the real benefits of, because like you said, a lot of firms are still just doing the copy and pasting. I think we've had this conversation too, that some are still, scanning photocopies of it into Revit and putting those section details in there that way. You can automate all that, freeing yourself to really eliminate those hours of time of creating those details and focus on what your design looks like, what adjustments can you make to clean things up, and really a lot of more of the beneficial sides of it. So there's, like I say, it is a BIM solution, but it gives you so much more outside of that BIM, and that it can automate a lot of your current workflows. It can automate the rendering. It can automate all that and allow you to really kind of hone in on other details of your project.
With more and more like owners and even CMs or GCs kind of requiring the coordination models and things during construction, I guess, I mean, how do you or Tom or how does 3D IQ feel about that process kind of getting moved forward into the design process? Because I mean, it does make sense to have these coordination models. We're not really seeing that at the design level yet. Do you think that is going to happen in the future?
I don't know if it will for completely fall in the hands of the design community, but I think it will fall in the hands of them being able to create those models, and then a checkbox of once it hits the contractors, because those resources are there to where they could, they can create that level of a unit of a model, and then once it gets to the hands of a contractor, there can be that kind of verification of being able to see this unit level information. But I think that we have those tools. We've created them. They're available now to use. That I think there's benefit for architects seeing this level of information, so that they have that understanding how everything installs. So I don't think it's out of the realm to would think that it is, could get pushed that further up in the process, so that these issues are caught on, so that they can make quick changes with just a few clicks of a button, as opposed to catching them on job site and having to correct those, once constructions began.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, especially in terms of some of our contract delivery methods now, like design build or public private partnerships, where the design team and the contractor are basically one entity. I mean, I think in those type of situations, it really makes a lot of sense to use these tools kind of earlier on, identify the issues before they're even issues. Because I mean, that's just going to save time and money on the project. And so, from an owner's perspective, I mean, it just makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, for an owner, just being able to know that they can have an architect find a lot of these issues and eliminate some of that back and forth later on in the process. I mean, it's a no-brainer for them to want to include this in their project. So absolutely.
In terms of the mud database, I know you said you had, I think, 24, 26 block producers around the country. Are you still actively trying to get more block producers involved in the mud database? Because I know in Michigan, I think we have one producer that has taken part. And so it's really nice for architects that use that producer. Maybe they sole source them or they're close from their block plant. But do you see in the future, I guess, that number increasing?
Absolutely. The Masonry magazine actually did an article on the update for the CMU checkoff in their November publication, and whenever they did a poll asking block producers what would be their top two priorities if CMU checkoff went through, and the number one was educating designers, architects on masonry, and that included the development of new software that promoted the proper use of designing with masonry. And that's what Masonry IQ is. So what we're doing is, we're giving the producers an outlet to be able to showcase their product to architects, so that they can accurately design with it. So we have 24 producers in there now. I anticipate us and probably adding another 5 to 10 this year, if not more, because we're constantly growing this. As we've seen from that article, that's a desire from the block producer community. This is something that the industry wants, and we've put a solution there and tools in the hands that they can take advantage of. And I think that's going to continue to grow. Our content base is going to continue to grow. So architects will have more and more content to use whenever they're designing.
I guess from a national perspective, I know I speak in terms of Michigan, where most of our firms are using Revit. But from a national perspective, does it seem like the trend is more that firms are using Revit, or are you still seeing AutoCAD kind of used nationally in some areas?
There's been some studies done, depending on which one you look at. The overall assumption is that probably 70 to 80% of commercial architects are utilizing Revit for their design platform. Obviously, there are those that are still using AutoCAD or ArchiCAD or some of the other platforms out there. But for the most part, the overwhelming population of commercial architects are in Revit, and that's the primary focus. Firms that I talk to that aren't using it, it's something they're considering moving to. So it is continuing to grow. That's why we chose Revit to be our first step on being able to have a solution there. We could get in front of the most architects specifically with the build tool. It's going to be released as a Revit plugin, but in later end of 2021, we're going to be releasing it as a standalone. So it can be, you don't have to have Revit to use it. It can be used by anybody, any contractor. So that's our long-term goal, is to make it platform, not specific, so that anybody, no matter if they're using Revit or AutoCAD or whatever, could be able to use and take advantage of what Masonry IQ can give them.
And I think, I mean, in terms of working with architects, a lot of the times when I work with them, they're kind of really surprised about how quick it is to use Masonry IQ. Because I think, I mean, you can send them emails and things like that about their projects, but they don't really understand how fast it is and efficient it is to use this product. I guess could you give us a perspective on, I guess, on let's say a warehouse project, maybe from a time standpoint? How long would that take to do in Masonry IQ?
We've kind of established that it's probably a speed increase of 10x, if not more. We ran it on a project that we got from a contractor here local to us. It's a large masonry project. I think there were nearly 180,000 units on it, and we designed the pattern on it. Probably taken 10 minutes, I think, total to kind of create the pattern that the architect had designed with. And then we ran the software on the model so that we could get that unit level information. It took 16 minutes to run, of being able to push in all the details into Revit, run it all on there so that we can see where the cuts are, where the corner units lay out, what the openings look like, how the fenestration with the pattern is. And you have 16 minutes. Whenever typically, I've never personally had to do it, but talking to architects, that could take days, if not weeks, worth of time.
Yeah, and I mean, especially when you think about drawing all those sections and having to put 2D elements in there, I mean, all you have to do is click a button, with Masonry IQ, and it lays out all those units for you. And especially, I mean, I have seen it be a problem in the past where, especially in multi-story, if you have brick veneer and a block backup, maybe you cut a section at the second floor and you're just pasting these 2D elements in there. And at some point you get off bond. And, when you're talking about other stuff in your wall section, it could be a pretty big issue, in terms of construction. But the nice thing with Masonry IQ is it's going to draw that whole section for you so you can make sure that the bond is, where it's supposed to be.
Exactly, and it's just guaranteeing your detailing. It's guaranteeing that you're accurate. If you do make a change, or just basic human error, sometimes things get overlooked, or you think you do something and you don't. You don't have to worry about those possible mistakes or having to explain why you forgot to do something, because the software is generating everything for you, and you're ensuring that it's all going to be there and it's going to be accurate because it's being pulled from a 3D model.
In terms of, I guess, other things that we can offer, I guess, from an association perspective, is there anything else we can do to help promote Masonry IQ?
We've had great support from associations like you, Phil, in Michigan, but across the country. And really, the biggest promotion that we can really look at is just the acknowledgement that Masonry IQ is out there, the awareness that it is a tool for architects. Because I'm talking to them every single day, and architects haven't heard of it. So I think there's just that awareness that needs to be increased. We're doing our efforts from a national standpoint, but associations and specifically like the producers are ingrained into their communities and the design communities around them. So any information and support that they can push, that this is a tool out there that can really promote the use of masonry. It's going to promote to how to effectively use it, making it more desirable to use masonry, making it easier to use masonry, and just easier to render with, and everything that it can encompass for an architect to use.
And if you're interested in looking into more 3D IQ, I would suggest checking out the website. You have some great videos posted, and the website is 3diqinc.com. When do you plan on having the Masonry, or is it Masonry IQ build or 3D IQ build?
Masonry IQ build.
Okay, Masonry IQ build. When will that be rolling out?
So we have beta versions of it right now in the hands of some contractors. Phil has actually played around with it and used it, so he can speak to a little bit on how it works. But the actual release of it, we're hoping to be early part of 2021 for the Revit portion of it. And then once we're actively developing to be a standalone. Once that's ready, which we're anticipating fall of 2021, that will be readily available then. And that's kind of where we'll probably get the reach to most of the contractors, because contractors typically aren't playing in Revit. So, there's a cost side of it to where they would have to get a subscription to Revit, and then on top of it, get a Masonry IQ Build subscription as well. So we really kind of anticipate the latter part of 2021 being where it will really kick off and be kind of prevalently used by contractors.
Yeah, I have played around with it, and I mean, I'm not the most computer savvy person in the entire world, but I think it's been pretty easy to use from my standpoint, and definitely well integrated with Revit, which I mean, like you said, Mike, a lot of the designers are using Revit nationally, and so it should be a really nice, seamless thing once it does come out.
Yeah, and kind of speaking to the usability of it, before I came on working at 3D IQ, I had no experience in Revit. Had never even touched a design platform before, and I would say I picked up being able to utilize Masonry IQ and Revit after maybe a couple hours worth of time playing in it. So this is someone who has no education on how to properly use design platforms or anything. So most architects should be able to pick this up and be pretty effective with it after a couple uses of it. If I can do it, like Phil, I'm not the most computer savvy person. I know I can, send emails and be dangerous in that sense, but I was able to effectively use it and do everything in there that anybody else who knows Revit would be able to use it with no issues.
And if people want to contact Mike, would you just point them to the website?
Yeah, you can come contact me through our website. We have sales at 3DIQ Inc. My email is mike at 3diqinc.com. So I am open to any conversation. Love talking with architects. Love learning about the projects that they're working on, and what we can do to help them. And we work with the contractors too, so learning about the projects that they have from their angle. Definitely any way that we can connect and really provide value for architects, producers, contractors, and just helping masonry grow as an industry. We're there, and we're going to be able to help out there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being on this episode.
I appreciate you guys having me on. This was fun. I've been looking forward to this, and now just hopefully we can continue to progress and have a better year in 2021 than what we did with 2020 and COVID.
Yes, well, we all came out of it alive for the most part, and the mason industry is still standing strong. So hopefully we'll have a good year ahead of us. And I think that wraps it up for this episode. If you like what we had to share, please share our episode with your friends and peers on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. I hope everybody has a good day. Thank you for listening to this episode of Masonry Principles. To continue the conversation, be sure to reach out to us by visiting masonryprinciples.com.